G'day, I'm Sherry.
And I'm Shannon, and welcome back.
This is Put It Plainly, the channel where we take the world's biggest stories and put them into plain English.
No jargon and no spin.
Today, we're telling the story of our own home, Australia, from the First Fleet in 1788 to the nation we've become today.
It's a story of convicts, courage, determination, invention, heartbreak, and hope. So let's put it plainly for you.
So the American Revolution meant that between 1775 and 1783, the British Empire lost its major colonies across the Atlantic Ocean.
And that meant that convicts could no longer be sent to old penal colonies in the Americas.
So, in January 1788, the First Fleet arrived at Sydney Cove, 11 ships carrying more than 1,400 people, mostly convicts, Marines and officers, setting up a penal colony on the far side of the world.
For Britain, it solved a massive problem. Prisons were overflowing after losing the American colonies. For the First Nations people already living here, it was the beginning of a profound and painful disruption.
Indigenous Australians had lived here for tens of thousands of years, arguably the world's oldest continuous culture. Now, they had languages, laws, and complex spiritual systems attached to the land.
The arrival of the British was a double-edged sword.
On the one hand, it introduced common law and democracy.
Yet on the other hand, it resulted in smallpox, displacement, clashes. Entire communities were impacted.
This is a truth we can't look away from, but it's also part of a bigger truth that out of this clash of worlds, something new began to form. Fragile at first, but destined to grow strong over time, and that's our Australia, Shannon.
The early years were harsh. Food was scarce, crops failed, and the isolation was crushing. The land didn't behave like England. The seasons were reversed, the soil was different, and the wildlife was greatly unique.
Yet somehow the folks adapted. Convicts who served their time became settlers. Others became landowners. The colonies started to slowly take shape.
As free settlers began arriving, new towns appeared. Parramatta, Hobart, and later Melbourne and Adelaide. Exploration pushed inland.
Names like Blaxland, Lawson, Wentworth and Sturt became legends. They crossed mountain ranges and followed rivers that had sustained Indigenous life for thousands of years.
But as they pushed further, frontier conflict deepened. Clashes between settlers and Indigenous clans at times became commonplace.
It was a time of both endurance and hardship, and this is what shapes the Australian story.
Then came the gold rush. In 1851, rich deposits were discovered in Victoria. This attracted interest from many all over the world as they flocked to Australia.
People flooded in from everywhere: Britain, Ireland, China, America, Germany. The population boomed, as did the economy.
The diggings were chaotic and often unfair. Miners were taxed heavily and at times treated harshly by the officials.
So in 1854, this boiled over into the Eureka Stockade at Ballarat, a short but fierce rebellion that became a symbol of standing up for your own rights.
Out of that came bigger ideas: democracy, equality, and representation. In fact, Australia became one of the first places in the world to introduce the secret ballot.
The generation born in Australia had no memory of the green pastures of Britain. They didn't carry the nostalgia of their parents' or grandparents' generations.
They began to develop their own unique Australian identity, where class mattered less and fairness mattered more. By the end of the 1800s, there were 6 self-governing colonies across the continent.
Now they shared a language, a flag, and a sense that they could do more together than apart.
So on January the 1st of 1901, these colonies united to form the Commonwealth of Australia.
A new parliament, a new constitution, and a new nation.
The same parliament that gave women the right to vote passed the Immigration Restriction Act of 1901.
Now, one might say it was a young nation full of confidence, but not yet mature enough to see its own blind spots.
When World War I broke out, Australia joined Britain immediately.
More than 60,000 Australian lives were sacrificed, a staggering toll for a nation of fewer than 5 million at the time.
The Gallipoli campaign failed militarily, but it defined a national spirit, courage, mateship, endurance, and a dark sense of humour in the face of hardship.
After the war came the Spanish flu, then the Great Depression. Folks lost jobs, homes and hope, but communities stuck together. And that's the Aussie way.
And just as recovery began, World War II erupted.
This time, the threat reached our shores. Japan bombed Darwin. Submarines attacked Sydney Harbour. For the first time, Australians actually started to feel vulnerable at home.
Prime Minister John Curtin turned to the United States for help, marking the birth of the Australia-US alliance.
And that decision still continues to shape our foreign policy today.
When the war ended, the world was shattered, yet really hopeful. Australia embarked on a huge reconstruction effort.
Populate or perish became the catch cry, and millions of migrants answered the calls. Italians, Greeks, Poles, Dutch, Maltese, and later Vietnamese, Lebanese, and Chinese families started to call Australia home.
They built homes, roads, railways, and factories. They bought new food recipes, opened up small businesses, and changed the sound and flavour of everyday life.
For many, it was a tough and lonely time with language barriers, but over time, they helped turn a quiet outpost into a vibrant, diverse nation.
The 1950s and 60s also brought on new industries, the Snowy Mountains hydro scheme and massive infrastructure growth.
The Aussie suburbs expanded. The Holden became a household name, and Sir Robert Menzies dominated politics for nearly 2 decades.
Australians felt secure and prosperous, and regular folks in the suburbs felt optimistic. The Aussie dream was very much alive.
And yet, beneath the surface, the world was changing fast.
The 1960s saw the rise of the civil rights movement around the world. Australia had its own moment in 1967 when over 90% of voters said yes to including Indigenous Australians in the national census.
It was symbolic but powerful, a national recognition that Indigenous people mattered as equals.
The Vietnam War divided the country. Conscription protests filled the streets. Whitlam came to power in 1972, promising change, freer education, health reform, and better relations with China.
But his government was dismissed in 1975, one of the most dramatic moments in Australia's history.
The 70s and 80s brought more independence. Our population became more diverse, women's rights gained momentum, and environmental awareness also grew.
We began to see ourselves less as a British colony and more as a country with our own voice.
The 1980s brought economic reform. The dollar was floated, tariffs were slashed, and the economy opened up to the world.
It wasn't easy. Manufacturing shrank, but essential services, mining and finance grew. Australia was on a path of modernity.
Sport became a unifying force, from the 1983 America's Cup to Cathy Freeman's gold medal in Sydney 2000.
Paul Keating prompted the idea of an Australian republic and reconciliation with Indigenous people. John Howard strengthened alliances and championed stability.
And through it all, ordinary Aussies worked, saved and raised families, shaping a middle-class society that soon became the envy of the world.
By the year 2000, Australia was confident and globally respected.
Then came New Century and new tests.
The September 11 attacks changed global security forever. Australia joined the United States in its war efforts in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Domestically, debates raged over asylum seekers, climate change, and national identity.
The Millennium Drought reminded us how fragile the land still is. Bushfires grew more intense, local communities showed bravery and compassion in crisis.
Meanwhile, technology reshaped daily life. Smartphones, social media, and a 24-hour news cycle that made the world feel smaller, yet at times completely dissatisfied.
And in the middle of all of that noise, people still found ways to help their neighbours, volunteer, and laugh about it.
Then came 2020, the pandemic that shut down the world.
Isolation, fear and division tested the Aussie spirit, but once again, we got through it the only way we know how, by looking out for each other.
The years since have been about recovery.
Cost of living pressures are real. Housing is tough. Trust in institutions has slipped. But the spirit of everyday Australians remains as strong as ever.
We're rethinking our place in the world, balancing ties with the US and the UK through AUKUS while managing trade and diplomacy with China.
At home, debates around Indigenous recognition, free speech, gender, and national symbols have reminded us that national unity really does take work.
But every generation before us has faced the same question. What kind of country does Australia actually want to be?
Well, the answer, I reckon, lies somewhere in that mix of fairness, decency, and quiet determination that's always defined us.
We might argue, we might stumble, but deep down, Australians still believe in giving everyone a fair go.
If you zoom out, Australia's story is one of impossible odds. A penal colony turned powerhouse, a land of droughts and floods turned into a democracy that actually works.
We've got our scars, but they're part of our character.
We faced injustice and tried to make it right. We've endured setbacks and turned them into lessons.
And every time the world's thrown something at us, war, fire, flood, pandemics, we've always found a way to pull through together.
And that's what makes this country special. Not perfection, but perseverance. Not slogan, but substance.
We're not one story. We're thousands: Indigenous elders, migrants, farmers, scientists, soldiers, nurses, artists, all adding their line to the national story.
And that's still being written, Shan.
The story of Australia isn't about what happened, it's about what we choose to remember and what we choose to become. Isn't that right, Shez?
We can acknowledge the pain of the past without losing pride in the progress we've made.
We can celebrate the things that unite us without pretending the work is finished.
And we can keep proving that even in a world that feels divided, a country can still stand for decency, fairness, and freedom.
That's the story of Australia from 1788 to our present day.
And that's how we put it plainly.
So if you like this episode, chuck us a thumbs up, share it around, and hit that subscribe button for many more interesting episodes.
We'll keep bringing you the world's biggest stories made simple.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Put It Plainly.